Everybody, a few minutes behind schedule, trying to get everything coordinated. First time we've really done this from the road. So, well, second time, I guess. And the last time was a tricky time, too. We are working on getting everything dialed in. I'm going to communicate with Chad here in a second. We will have Chad Prather in like 5 or 10 minutes tops and everything. I just got to get everything set up and plugged in. So hang in there. We'll be right back with Chad Prather. All right. Just hang in there a little longer.
Yo, Money, can you hear me?
All right.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot see you, though.
I'm in a car driving.
Oh,
There I am.
hey, man.
This is going to be a shit show. My phone won't charge.
Oh, nice. That's handy.
Yeah, my phone's it's low, so I've got it plugged in while I'm driving.
All right.
I was supposed to be in Houston by now, but I hit a big old pocket of traffic that stopped. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, say these words for me, if you would. Hey, this is Chad Prather, and you're watching the Break It Down show. Say that whole thing again. None of it came through.
All right. Hey, this is Chad Prather. You're watching the Break It Down show.
Hey, man. So this is modern technology at its best here. I'm sitting poolside at my buddy Phil Green's house. You're driving your car to Houston, and we're recording a podcast. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I know. I don't know how we ever survived without this.
How are things going in Texas? Are things crazy?
Oh, we're live. That's right.
No, man, things are wide open. It's good. I mean, unless you're in Austin, those people are crazy. But
I haven't.
I was just in Austin last week, which is a mini Southern California. Everybody's in masks. Even the homeless people wearing masks in Austin.
The homeless
which is
people.
Funny to me since they haven't washed their bodies in 6 months.
Look who's here. It's Scott Huesing, best-selling award-winning author.
I don't know anybody by that name. I don't know anybody.
Don't diss
by
me
that
like
name.
that on the Google, on the Facebook
What's
Live.
up,
What are we on,
sexy
Pete? I mean, we're on like
Look what I
5
can do.
different channels.
YouTube,
Look what I can do. I can take my mustache and curl it now.
Instagram.
Oh, that is a fancy curled mustache.
Yeah.
Look at
Are
that.
you growing your hair
That's
back?
what
That's my
COVID's doing
question.
to me. Yeah, it's growing back little by little.
Nice.
Little by little. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. It's gonna suck. Hang on a second.
Yeah,
Are we doing the show right now?
we're doing the show right
All
now.
We're doing-
Back.
Okay, so the reason, hey Chad, so the reason I was late is
Keep
like
up,
I can't.
Scott. This is real life.
I know it's real life, but I'm like a kid with shiny objects. I come in, Phil Green is sitting over here,
Phil, scooch over this way so
Yeah.
we can get you in the camera.
All right.
and I walk in his house, and he's got his new high-speed mobility chair. I don't know what the technical term is, but I could not resist hopping in it while he was getting a haircut. It's got so many buttons on it. It's like any piece of military machinery. I was like, I gotta fuck around with this thing. And then
I gotta start pushing buttons. That's why I would never want to get on a helicopter with you, Scott.
Yeah, no, you're perfectly safe. But when you get in your car and your kid or your wife's been driving it and they fuck with the seat and the mirrors, that's what Phil was like when he got back into his chair because I didn't know what I was doing. So I like reset it for a short person. He's got me by about 6 inches. So
I'm gonna scooch you in.
That's what she
not in my
said.
pants, but
Yeah.
height wise.
Phil, I don't know how to make it so you can hear.
How,
We'll figure it out.
How are you guys doing? How's everything in Cali?
I feel like we're sorting it out little by little. Half of us are
Yeah.
terrified, half of us are ready to get on with work, and half of us are pissed off at half of us.
Yeah.
What's the math on that?
You know,
All of
it. A lot of fraction.
My manager that's
Yeah,
in
do
LA,
this
he
right.
called us the other day, and he's like, "Why is there so much traffic in
I
Texas?
can put my
We
headset
don't
on something
understand.
here.
Are y'all not worried about it? No.
I got nowhere to plug you in.
Oh,
I mean,
know,
we're playing by the rules here. I know Texas is practically light years ahead of California when it comes to the phases, but we don't feel that heightened sense of anxiety like the big cities in LA or Dallas or Chicago or New York. So we're pretty lucky out here in wine country, and it's just it doesn't feel that much different. I understand completely what other segments of the population are going through, and I think it's tough, for those folks. But I'm anxious to get back down to Texas next month, hopefully, and see what you guys are up to.
Bring some
It's good. Every place is good. Like I said, downtown Austin is a ghost town. But downtown Austin's a weird place anyway. All the other places, I mean, they're open. Like I said, I was in Fort Worth today. I'm headed down to Houston. I was supposed to be there an hour from now, and I got shut down by a big traffic jam. So that ought to tell you how many people are out on the roads.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's like nothing ever happened here.
Is Texas, the school, is that open for business? I mean, that's another reason why Austin would be a ghost town. If there's no one there drinking, no one's going to be in Austin.
That's the thing. Austin, there's no tourism, there's no convention business, there's no shows. So any place where people get together, that's not happening. We finally have started. We were at 25% for restaurants and bars. Now we're at 50% capacity. So in some places, live music has started back up, and that's going along and doing its thing. So, little by little, it's happening. You finally got things to do in Texas.
Do you, as someone you're broadcasting, you're doing live shows, you had a full calendar. How was the transition for you? I mean, do you feel it? Like, do you think like, oh, this is something cool? And I say that I ask that question because comparatively speaking, you do a live show, you got a couple hundred people in there, and you do something virtually on social media, you've got hundreds of thousands of people. So how do you balance that? We're a little frozen, I think.
Yes, technology. Well, Scott,
that was
I'll
a
answer
perfect
for
question.
Oh man, modern technology is so good sometimes.
It was absolutely. If we're still live and Chad's frozen because he's in his truck, it's absolutely appropriate I ask that question right there. That's the glitch, though, right? I mean,
yeah.
When you're in front of someone face to face, you're like feeling the human reaction, and you can gauge that thing. You don't know how many people are watching your comedy show or listening to the podcast and are on the crapper, or they're doing dishes, and they're not giving you the full attention like they would when they pay for a show.
Yeah. So let me, just in case you haven't been paying attention, Chad is driving somewhere in Texas in his truck. And we all know Chad in his truck, and we love that. And so we're recording that way. His phone is dying because, of course, it's low on batteries, as is mine. And so we don't know if he lost his phone or if he lost his signal. But in the meantime, Scott and I will absolutely entertain you. And we have Phil somewhere. He's working on some headphones.
He's rolling in hot.
So yeah, we got plenty of entertainment here.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think this is a really good time to. Well, I don't know. We can't do a video to get Solomon in.
Oh man,
to talk
Solomon. I'll blow these mics out if I do Solomon too. I got to move the mic.
But I think we should introduce people.
We going to debut Solomon for officially?
We've known this guy Solomon for how long?
Oh man, for ultimately for years. My buddy Dave West, who we still do our characters, and one of them is Solomon, who is he's an aggressively angry guy who loves you and cares about your well-being. He is.
I don't want to let him out of the bag, but we need to get him on the show soon.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll let him out of the bag.
I don't want to spoiler alert Solomon because he's such a great guy.
And then we got Phil, and I'm going to plug Phil in here so Phil can start to hear and interact with us.
I didn't plug it in. My hands are
Phil, freshly shorn green, coming in live.
Gotta get my heads.
He's got to get his earphones on, his headphones. You got enough of everything you need?
Yes.
And here's your phone that I brought out here for you.
Okay. Hang on. Let me.
10 things at once. Task saturation.
Yeah, we're actually at Casa de Verde. The pool is just off to our right here. And we got Phil. We're going to do a session with Phil after this also. So if you want to hang around, an unannounced secret show, we'll have Phil coming on just about an hour. So Chad is saying his phone died. Your battery.
Perfect.
Yep. But he'll be back as soon as he can get his charge on. And I know we'll do a full-on regular, not so crazy show. Matter of fact, you and I should go to Texas. Just hop in the car at some point and just go east.
Yeah.
And go do a Texas run.
Is Texas east or south?
Yes.
South and east.
I mean, due east. Texas is tall. So like Amarillo for sure is due east of us, if not even a little bit north.
Yeah. A guy who's a grunt for so long should know that. Maps and all that. Should be better.
Plug in my headphone.
Your headphone. They are plugged in. Oh, that all the way.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Phil Green, who can now hear and communicate. Pretty crazy.
So June, I'm supposed to be down in Texas. So I don't know what the calendar looks like. I was planning on flying, and I was just on the phone with my cousin Steve Hutton, who's been on the show, the CEO of Uppercut Management, and he was really curious about how much I'm not traveling. And I told him I was planning on going to Texas, and he was most concerned about the whole flying thing. Like, do you have that fear of like getting back on a plane after all this? I mean, I've only seen short videos on local and national news of people flying with face masks and face shields and gloves.
Yeah. Look, fear is too strong of a word. I respect the fact that there's added increase of exposure for me and for other people, if I get on an airplane, I don't know how well the air circulates. I know that when I farted on an airplane, it smells bad for a long time. So, if you've got COVID, I imagine, look, being on a ship, it makes it spread easier, right? So you want to be out of an enclosed space. So I would probably wear a mask most of the time on there, just for one, because I don't want to give anybody else any stress.
I think I'd be like a defensive driver, and when I went to an airport or something like that, I'd be backing away from people because there's always some idiot out there who thinks, oh, I'm not carrying, so it's all right for me to still sneeze and cough and snot on my sleeve and wipe it and touch.
Yeah.
There's people like that. Or you go to the Hudson News and there's some jackweed and he's picking up everything on the shelf and like putting it back and going into the fridge. And you're like, hey, dumbass, what part of pandemic don't you understand that everything you touch could possibly cross-contaminate? So I don't know.
You also have to do the ritualistic washing of the hands nonstop. Like if you're traveling on the airplane, like even just to show everybody, like I'm doing everything I know how to do to keep clean.
Well, I think what's funny too is whether I will true confession, which I love. So I went out the other day to the grocery store, and it was late, so I knew there wasn't much people in there, and I didn't wear my mask. And we're not required to.
Right.
But when I was in the store, there was this lady and her teenage kid, and she was for me like my skin was falling off.
Yeah.
Like I was hacking and coughing. Like I was completely distanced from her. We weren't touching anything, but she was looking at me with contempt.
Yes.
Like how dare you?
Yeah.
I could feel it. That.
Yep.
I don't know. I liken it to like a chick having a nice rack or some, like people are just staring.
Yeah.
And
okay. I thought you were like,
no, I'm not being misogynistic, but like, from a feminist standpoint, chicks are always saying like, people don't stare at me like that. You can feel it.
Yeah.
And just because I wasn't wearing a mask, I could tell they were eyeballing me. Like I had gone way out of my lane.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And you see, and I keep forgetting to bring a mask, and we're, I guess, technically supposed to have them, but like they're not really enforcing it.
You got your Rasta.
Yeah, and I've got this
scarf.
ridiculous thing that covers my face, but let's be honest. Like my M95 mask that I have has been used 15 times. It just smells like my bad breath in there. And I breathe it in, and I'm like, I get a sore throat from all the M95 particles coming off, and I'm breathing them in, And that's the other thing is like, how effective are these? I don't know. I'm not trying to not wear one, but I'm also not like, I don't even think about it. Partly because, and this is my thing I always say, but it's true. I've been hit by a tank on the things that I'm scared of, like catching some kind of a cold. I'm not trying to undermine that it's a cold. It's just not something that even registers as a threat to me. I'm aware of it, but I am not good at remembering it.
Yeah, it just constantly permeates everything we do. And in reality, the number of deaths related to this, even if they're fractional of what's reported, it is like a new way of life. Like after 9/11, it's just more prolonged.
For sure.
So I like your model of you got to respect it.
You got to respect it,
but you can't live in fear.
I'm not going to live in fear.
No, and I had my two older kids fly down 2 weeks ago, and was a little unsure about that flying down from Seattle, and they had to wear masks. And the plane, the interesting thing about the plane is they social distance in the aisles, but they don't social distance from aisle to aisle. So the person sitting behind you
is 3 feet away,
coughing on you in a mask, but they want someone completely on the opposite end of your aisle. That person's 10 feet away from you.
If you don't have a mask, do they not let you board?
They will provide you with
They will provide you with one.
So my daughter's flying home tomorrow, and then I'm flying up there on the 13th of June. So it'll just be interesting.
It's going to be, I wonder how long that will last. And then will masks provided by airlines also be barf receptacles? Like a bag of Jiffy Pop popcorn, like it'll expand. Like you unzip your suit, so you're like, it protects pandemic, and then you get barf into it, and then the guy with the long mask coming off the plane, he was sick. That'd be gross. You've experienced all of this, though.
Well, I mean,
we won't mention any names.
but
We
think about-
cannot.
Yeah, we won't
mention any names,
I was filtering already, but I was thinking about MOP 4 and what it's like. So there's a category of a uniform that service members have to wear when there's a chemical attack, and there's different levels of how protected you have to be because there's chemical agents outside
and biological
and
nuclear,
and
that's what we train
nuclear.
for.
And so you have like this what would you just like a puffy jacket?
It's a charcoal suit.
Yeah, it's a charcoal, but
It's
that doesn't make any sense.
It's a body. It's a bodysuit and 95 mask.
Yeah, imagine
with
like
rubber galoshes,
a flannel jacket, like with the padded flannel jacket with a hard, like almost a Carhartt outer shell, and then it's just it's stuffed full of charcoal and padding and fluff and and then you put on galoshes over your boots, not over your shoes, over your boots, and so you're like you have to be ready in 10 seconds or whatever the number is.
It's a significant emotional event. Either way.
So hard. And then you put on the full mask with a hood, and then your helmet. And you're just like, get me out of all of this stuff.
I'd like to know from listeners or anyone that pipes into what they think the last type of business to reopen 100% will be. I've got a guess, but I want you. What do you think?
That's a good question. Let me think about that. I think Pete has one in the chamber.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think it's easy just to say like porn shop. Like with movies and stuff, because there's already a lot of DNA flying around.
And does still exist?
Oh yeah.
For sure. Dudes are always going to be horny.
Go to the theater and watch like
no one's gonna open a glory hole tomorrow. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
but you bring up good, but like strip clubs where you have the.
But they have a do not touch policy. It's not 6 feet.
Depends on what state you're in.
Well, yeah. True. I mean, I've heard.
Yeah,
from people. I think it's gyms.
How about a Chuck E. Cheese? Is there anything grosser than a Chuck E. Cheese? Like from the outset? Oh, that's
I think it's gyms. Like all the sweat.
Yeah.
And you're touching barbells and like you're using the same equipment over and over. Like I think the restrictions they're gonna have are like wearing gloves in the gym, long sleeve apparel, headbands. So everyone's walking around like 1980s Bjorn Borg or John McEnroe, tennis sweatbands. Like
Joe Giuliani says, strip joints.
Yeah, well, Joe would know. Joe would know strip joints for sure.
And then Brian Tice says schools, and schools really are tough because kids are dirty. They touch. I mean, think about what do boys not touch and put in their mouth?
Everything.
Everything. They don't wash their hands.
They never wash their hands.
Although now that I think about it, I'm thinking smoke shops. So cigar shops and things like that, where you sit there and you smoke. I think where you're exhaling, people are going to be really nervous about breathing in your aerolized particles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hoping, wishful thinking, it'd be like the IRS would be the last one to open. Dream business to open last. IRS, like, fuck yeah. Like, I know I'm gonna get audited, but no, like they could just stay closed. Like,
those guys
do the world a service.
Are always overwhelmed anyhow, and so like this only like you could hire 10 million IRS agents and they still couldn't finish their work for 10 years. Like that, even though they're open, they'll never have enough. That's what's so smart about the Americans. They're like, we're not going to give you much money, IRS. You're going to have to do more with less. Don't do that much more.
Yeah, those guys get beat down all the time. Too,
They do. They do.
All the IRS workers out there, let's give them some props. I mean,
Brian Tice says arenas and music festivals, and that's for sure. That's super tough. Like if you go to Summerfest in Wisconsin, it's dicks to butts all around that place. And, people are carrying drinks and passing drinks, and that ain't happening anytime soon.
Well, before we lost Chad, he was talking about Austin, and one of my favorite things to do is to go down to ACL, and everybody's running around with their shirt off, and it is, it's like a mob scene down there.
Yeah.
So those are, I think Brian's right. And I was talking to Steve about that too. I said, hey man, how I have to ask, how's this hit you financially? Because he manages bands, and all their tours are getting crushed. But like me, thankfully he's at that stage in his life where he's saved and he's got a buffer. But
Yeah.
The 20 somethings that are just starting out. I mean, that sucks. It really is. And even though you don't know someone impacted by the virus itself, they got sick. I think we all know someone one-on-one that has been affected financially, their job, their revenue. It's in everybody's life.
Well, you think about everybody on that tour who's not making six figures, which is most of the people in support on that tour. They usually have a second job. Like my buddy Scott, he works with the Eagles. He's on their road crew. And so when they're not on the road, which the Eagles normally are most of the year, he's got to go do some other job. So now he's got to find it, and he does. It's construction. So now you got this guy in his 50s who's slinging a hammer, hanging frames if houses are being built, and even that's kind of hard right now.
How many farewell tours have the Eagles done?
They're on a perpetual farewell tour.
Have you been to one?
I have not been to one of their shows in a long time.
I've been to one.
Yeah.
Somebody puked in my backseat of my Jeep and spilled a Mountain Dew glacial freeze in the back of my Jeep. That's how I remember that show. Don't remember shit that was sung on stage, but I remember the Mountain Dew getting spilled in the backseat of my car. Yeah. The Eagles. But those guys that support all the shows are the ones really getting jacked up.
I was talking with Kelly Lowry, who works in the oil industry, and Phil knows Kelly, in Bakersfield. And their company, what their job is, they flex out labor capacity to the oil fields because they don't need those people hired on all the time. And so you contract labor, like, we're going to break down this derrick and service it. We need 20 guys for 3 weeks to do a turnaround on this thing. So, no one's in. First off, there's a double glut of oil. There's all the oil from OPEC opening the spigot and then sending ships over to try to undermine our oil market. Plus, no one's driving, so none of our oil here is being consumed. So it's just sitting there in tanks. So all of those turnaround jobs, all of those other things, those aren't there, and nobody wants to invest money in oil right now because the market is, it's saturated. And so you think about that whole thing. We're like, all the trucks that would be driven, and I'm talking like professional trucks, not even like F-150s you drive around yourself. All of those trucks aren't wearing out batteries. They aren't, wearing out tires. And so the guy that makes his living on providing on the second level of support for oil fields, that guy doesn't know when they're going to be selling tires again,
That's I like it when people chime in too. If anyone's tuning in and watching, I like that's the class is half full type stuff too from this is what would be name at least one or two positive things that are going to come out of this. I mean, since this is like the COVID show, I mean, I don't know how we got dovetail on this, but it permeates every discussion. One or two positive things that are going to come out of this.
Phil?
Well, in my world, there's quite a few positives. So, what COVID-19 has shown us in the ALS community is that the FDA and the government, NIH, HHS, can work together in a much quicker way than they have been in our disease. So it's set a precedent that they can approve things and get experimental therapies in people's bodies in a much more streamlined fashion. So that is a silver lining for us, as well as telemedicine advances, and it opened the door for for example, I have a meeting with my neurologist or an appointment next Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. from here. And I don't have to drive to UC Irvine to meet with her. And what we're hoping is post COVID-19 is that that those sort of things will stick where it makes sense.
Yeah. Where
I don't have to get in a car and drive an hour each way for an hour appointment, and we can just do it all over Zoom or whatever. And unless they're sticking a needle in me or something like that, then let's try and have telemedicine where it makes sense. And it's good in the world of ALS. It's a day affair for some people to get their wheelchair up to see their doctor, and you can turn that whole day effort into an hour getting on a Zoom call.
And the turnover of patients could be expedited, I
Correct.
think.
Yeah. And it just, that's two things that in my new world that COVID-19 is really shown us, a positive in this big, otherwise negative. And so, yeah, I'm ironic or oddly grateful that has opened up those doors. But overall, this pandemic is not good for the economy and things like that.
I still got billed by my doctor when I was virtual. They actually mailed me in the U.S. Postal Service prescriptions.
Really?
The handwritten ones, because there was a computer issue between something. But yeah, I think that's a huge one. And it's so crazy it just might work, like to sustain that. Or will people be so parochial they'll have to snap back in and go back to regular doctor's office visits because all clinicians and physicians are lonely. They want to see people. I mean, we do. We like doing these podcasts in person. I mean, that's why we're here with Phil.
The telemedicine thing too is important because when you do go to your appointment, no matter who you are, they always expect you to be there early because I don't know what. So you end up 15 minutes, 45 minutes early for your appointment that you end up going in late to.
Absolutely.
There's an hour right there that you get back by just saying, I'll hang out on Zoom or whatever it is, whatever the platform is. And now you get to go in when the doctor's there and you're like, oh, you're here. You're not just waiting on and doing nothing.
Which is 60 hours accumulated over a year for a physician. So,
for sure.
All the docs out there are like, hey, dude, whatever your billing rate is times 60 and think you can make that much more money.
Yeah.
Just by doing this. But that's huge.
And thanks for making it heavy, Phil. I was going to make a joke about how 100,000 people being dead means that my good-looking guy status had to go up at least a little bit. But you ruined my joke by being all serious.
No, well, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. It is a good thing. Like,
Pete, you will take every advantage to look better in social status.
That's right. Except for that, my haircut is literally halfway done. We were cutting my clipper shut off halfway through, and I'm like, "That's my haircut today."
You got half a clip.
Yeah, look, it's like long here and then short here on the sides. We didn't get to finish.
Pete has concierge haircutting.
Yeah, Phil. Yeah.
Right
I'm gonna have Phil's concierge haircutting lady tighten my hair up in
Chris. Yeah.
How about in-home illicit haircuts? That's a good option as well.
Illicit haircuts?
Well, I mean, if you're not allowed to have haircuts, I'm not saying you're not allowed to, but like in a lot of places, a haircut is illegal.
Black market haircutters?
Yeah. Well, let's go gray market.
I thought you were talking about like haircuts with a happy ending.
Like
Joe.
Right. That's what I thought.
Joe, if he's still listening, he would be a fan of that. Like Joe would be a fan of happy ending. And
Mary's chiming in. People are having to find new interests and skills like bread making and new technologies. That is true. That is a good positive. What have you guys baked at your house?
I don't bake. I can, but I don't. I cook. I don't know. I think people are paying more attention to, like in the vein that Mary's talking about, home improvement. I know that people are taking more pride in their homes or landscaping. Maybe it is something small craft project. I think people are getting tied into their families more, doing a puzzle, just something to really break up the monotony, which they could probably do even without a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
But it kind of I think Mary's right. It brings people back to the roots a little bit and makes you feel good about yourself too. I don't know. Mary, how does it feel to bake a loaf of bread and share that knowing you made it? I mean, it's got to feel good. So
let me think. Another positive. I have more downtime, which, for guys like us, and you too, you're always busy. It's good to be like, hey, there really is nothing for me to do right now. I'm going to, watch this TV show, or in particular, I've been reading a lot more books.
Yeah.
So that's been good because I'm filling the well in other areas that I don't normally allow for, to do that.
I think the technology, bridging gaps, despite the fact that Chad fell out on us, he's driving aimlessly somewhere in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area right now. Who knows where he's at? Or he's in Austin. I don't know.
Yeah.
but people's willingness to use technology, I think, especially in education, I still think, there's great comparisons. Kind of like, there's nothing like getting a handwritten letter in the mail.
Oh yeah.
Like, I get hundreds of emails every day, but when I get a handwritten note in the mail, I think that's the best. But people's use and understanding of technology, I think, is probably something that's gotten better. And I think that applies to schools too. And I think when all the kids are going back to school, what's neat about this, which I'm most impressed with, is the plans, at least in California, is they're giving parents and children options on how they feel comfortable reintegrating back into those mass gathering systems. Like, you could go back to school full-time in the classroom, you could go back part-time to limit your possible exposure, or you could do a combination of online learning, or you can go full online, and you're not judged when you graduate from X academy or X high school. It's like, oh, well, you just got the online degree, you're from Phoenix University, like, whatever. No,
Right.
It still has the same weight and the same bearing. What will be interesting to me is when they go back to school, how many of those professionals can really break from that traditional, parochial mold of rows of desks in classrooms inside a building, instead of saying, hey, class, we're meeting under the jacarandas today.
Oh.
And we're going to give a period of instruction on whatever, biology 101. And
Jacarandas are lovely trees with a purple flower.
Yes, they are. Pete's favorite, maybe my favorite tree, but
They're beautiful.
I think that's going to be that's going to be an interesting positive effect through the technology and the way people balance what I'm always talking about, that the power of human connection. There's no substitute for this.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of benefits that are going to come out of it.
I like it. Okay. So that's the positives of COVID's. What are some of the challenges that you think that we're going to be able to, in the positive sense, like, these things are hard, but we'll get through this and we'll be better? What are some of those things?
Well, I mean, we're forced into innovation. So, I mean, my prior job title I was a VP of Innovation, Digital Innovation, and what this has forced the entire world to do is to innovate on how to be safe and physically distanced from one another and minimize chances for exposure to this virus. And it's I guess one good thing is it's giving new opportunities to innovative people to start new businesses based on that innovation. And even these millennials that grew up with technology and really maybe thought they were going to be stuck in their parents' house for the rest of their lives because no one was giving them a job or an opportunity, they are now, everybody's on level ground when it comes to coming up with creative ways to solve the new problems we have today that have been caused by this virus. So I think another positive is just allowing new creative muscles to be flexed in this world. That, I mean, it's really a whole new landscape that the entire world is learning how to adapt to.
I think it would be an interesting study. Maybe we could get some 20-pound brain club member of ours to do the research on. I think people will start washing their hands more. I don't know how many times I go into a bathroom and I see some dude walking out next to me. He's like, doesn't hit the sink.
Right.
So maybe now everybody will start washing their hands, but will all infectious diseases go down, like all categories of flu, all categories of staph or whatever? Will we figure this out? Like, washing your hands and being sanitary helps, limit the spread of diseases. I hope that's nothing else that comes out of it. But what were we talking about too was the priorities of everything, and we were listening to LA local news last week, and in the same message, they were talking about how this pandemic is affecting the homeless in LA, and in the same breath they were talking about the money they're losing from building the new Rams Stadium.
Yeah.
Like $500 million they needed to, otherwise they're going to lose jobs and the stadium can't be built. I think another good thing we may be on the cusp of America's priorities getting in order.
Mhm.
Yeah, like $500 million to build a stadium, or $500 million to help people living under Sepulveda Bridge. I don't know.
Yeah.
Call me
Boy.
crazy.
That's Sepulveda Bridge, and then the next bridge, and the next bridge.
Yeah. Every bridge is like a mini tent city up in LA. So
Yeah.
People
we'll
just
see.
need to build more bridges.
More bridges. That's the answer to the whole.
Oh wait, that's
problem.
not the solution.
Build more bridges.
Phil, I'm going to write that in my banners. Phil suggests building more bridges. If I can figure out how to do that right here live.
It was a joke.
It's funny.
Right in your sarcasm part.
Okay.
And I want hate mail.
I want to hate mail.
Hey, do you get any hate mail on the show?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do.
What's the most threatening piece of hate mail you've gotten?
Never usually threats. Just like there'll be comments in like on YouTube or whatever.
I'm not talking about you getting your feelings hurt. I mean, like Pete.
Yeah. No, there's
hate. They have to use the word hate, or it has to be like.
There's people for sure, like, because I try to participate with the conversations that happen on social media, even though I know it's like silly, but I try to be engaged. And so sometimes there's stuff there. People will put me or the show on some kind of political platform, and if you were to ask me my beliefs, I would tell them to you. But, I bet that, like, what I'm about. I'm like,
What are your beliefs, Pete?
I'm going to tell you my feelings. The ability to communicate clearly that, like, hey, we're all in this together. Yeah, that's what we're really trying to do. That's what Sebastian Younger asked us to do. That's what we always try to oblige. And so when I'm bringing up a contrary point of view, it's just because we're trying to educate all of us. Like, I don't blame anybody for wanting people to wear masks because they're terrified of the exposure to to COVID. I also don't blame anybody that's like, hey, I need to go play football because that's what I do. Like Jimmy Fitz is out riding his motorcycle again after damn near dying because that's what he does, So I also understand that. And in that world, we all get to exist. You don't get to tell me what to do. I don't get to tell you what to do. And I have to understand that you get to do what you get to do. It doesn't have to be comfortable for me, so we all have to sort that out.
Is there ever been a time where you've gotten a piece of hate mail electronically or otherwise?
Yeah.
That bothered you?
Oh, bothered me?
Like you're like, oh man, I really need to sort my shit out.
I mean, if there's some critique to glean from it, I try to take it. It doesn't mean I like it, but I try to consider the voice that maybe I didn't consider. I don't worry about them being upset. I'm not trying to upset them. If I've caused a legitimate offense, of course I apologize. But if you're making content that makes people think, you're going to make them think things they don't like, and they're going to get mad at you. I accept that.
I don't think out of all the shows I've listened to, you've ever said anything really derogatory. I mean, I think the IRS guys might be the first ones that got hammered, and that was me. I'll take that. But then I apologized.
A good guy to ask this to is John. I think he was able to hear us in the studio. Chad's phone died, John, in the middle of the show, so we thought we'd bring you in as well because we're always boosting the quality.
Hey,
that's right.
But every now and then we get critical. Like you have people that say negative things. I don't know if you ever get the emails, but you for sure have seen the messages on Facebook.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't get as incendiary as you do. And I don't mean that to be, your just willingness to engage in those topics goes far further than mine. And that's not to say that I'm not willing. I just, there are a bunch of other topics that I hit first. So for instance, like right now, I just wanted to say hi to Scott and Phil. So what's going on, fellas?
Good to see you, John.
And I see Pete.
Even the way John said that is like, that was John's way of saying, you're not a pussy, Pete. But John, I can count on John never to say stuff like that. I love you.
Oh, John will talk about pussy.
Yeah. Well, at my age, hey, I can't do too much more than talk about it like I used to back in the old days. I've been married a long time. You know, we settle into our routines and such. Not a complaint, just an observation.
Yeah. What's a good positive takeaway from you throughout the COVID crisis that we've been enduring?
Well, I'll tell you what, it has revealed, I think, a lot of the character of a lot of people. In that I know some folks who have gone out in their neighborhoods and checked up on the older folks who live on their street. And I've just seen people come together in ways that, you know, just to offer help, just to offer, you know, a lend an ear, everything. So
Wait. So you have your neighbors came and checked on you?
yeah, I walked right into that. So yeah, they came to check on me and see if I was properly prophylactic and all that stuff. No. Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I think I saw those kinds of things and I was happy to see people come together in a lot of ways. I was happy to see some videos of people spending time with their kids. And not to say that those people didn't spend the time with their kids before, but it just gave us an excuse to do a lot more of the things that we should have been doing. Of course, a lot of people are having a hard time. And, you know, I don't want to discount those folks who are having a tough go of it. But in a lot of cases that I saw, people were making the best out of the situation and, you know, doing things that were pretty cool.
John, like our earlier guest this week, Chad Michael Collins, super glasses half full kind of guy. See, right when he said that, I'm thinking it's shown people's true characters.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking the bad stuff. And you can relate to this, and we'll throw a military comparison in. There's one thing we do in training in the military, and we hike 5 miles, 10, 15, up to 25 miles with this heavy gear on. It provides absolutely zero training benefit other than a lot of pain. But one real quantifier is you can judge the character of people on a hike. When you got to sling 60, 70, 80 pounds of ruck and kit and weaponry and hike in the sun for 20 plus miles, those who make it and those who get on the truck, it is a game changer as far as assessing character. So the guy that's working out all day in the gym and he's all, you know, abbed out and looking strack, he falls out on the hike. While as a skinny guy, or maybe the short fat Marine, you know, who's always getting his ass chewed, he makes it. So it's really all about character. But I love, again, your positive outlook on things. But I think at the beginning of this, we really saw the hoarders, the people, speaking negatively politically and about the healthcare systems. Like, that was how it has come. And then it rolled out, and now it's good to see some perspective. So I'm glad you shared that, John.
Well, you know what? It's not that our observations are different. I mean, I saw those things too, Scott, but I just like to talk about the guys who made it back to the truck. I don't really, you're absolutely right that those people exist, but I like to, I don't pay them much mind. So to me, they don't get a lot of press.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You know who else doesn't get a lot of press? And this is sort of encapsulates what we try to do on the show. Those guys on the 3 mile run, on that ruck march, who this is what I do. I go around person to person, if you're allowed to do it, and I talk to them, take the mental load off a little bit. If they're carrying something heavy, I might take it from them for a little bit. Like if they're carrying that 5-gallon blivet of water, I'll come over and be like, hey, man, my canteen's dry. Even though I just pounded my canteen so I could go do it. I go over there and take a little bit of weight off their back or off their mind. And the same thing with the run. Your PT test, you're running. I finish up. I go out and I grab someone and I run them back in just to run with them, and whatever. And if they don't want it, they can wave me off, but no one ever does. They're always like, yeah, man, thanks for doing that. Is
blivet an Army term? Or like, were you in World War II? Like, well, water blivet? Like the bag of water?
Yeah.
They still had those?
Absolutely. A 5-gallon
Were you in the Vietnam War?
No.
We were in the same war. I never heard the term.
Where Scott was fighting in combat, it was kind of gentle, and they didn't have to worry about water.
We had like Nestle water bottles or something.
Yeah, but we were out for like 16 hours hiking.
Instead of blivet.
Yeah, in a blivet. What else would you call it? It's not a Camelback. It's like 5 gallons. It's huge.
I got your blivet, Pete.
It's a big camel.
I'm going to start using blivet in every show.
Yes. Military jokes. Nice blivet. That's my underwear. Whatever.
You get some hate mail about that, I bet.
I bet.
So you reminded me of another positive. It in addition to showing the true character of people, it also helped us identify who is essential in our communities and who really isn't, and what jobs after this pandemic subsides you're going to have a whole new respect for, whether it's a stalker at the grocery, not a stalker, not like that guy that's checking out your wife, but
the guy that's perusing the
shelf.
freezer section,
the shelf
for nipples
stalker,
that guy,
or checkout person, but especially the nurses and those frontline workers that every day put themselves in harm's way and possible infection and things like that. So I think that's one of the biggest positives is a new appreciation for a workforce that probably has been really underappreciated for a long time.
Yes, indeed.
I'll say this will get me some hate mail too. If you're the person who's like the executive from the government branch, good gracious, you got a hard job. I remember at one point Gavin Newsom said it's 30 to 70%, the spread rate or whatever. Like that's not even a guess. That's half of the numbers in the thing. But that's what he's given. And they're like, now go figure this out, Governor. And you're like, this may or may not be an enormous thing. And then you think you got it licked and this changes and that changes, like Riverside County, tons of death. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's a hell of a range.
Yeah, you're like, how would so all of those guys that have to make those calls, and you can see, especially early on, Gavin Newsom, his eyes were red. He's like, all right, we've been talking about this all night. Like, he was worn out. So yeah, we can be critical of him, doing a bad job or whatever, but no one wants that job. No one was going to go, I have all the answers. So thanks to all those guys that had to try to take that impossible thing on.
Again, thanks. We talk about this a lot, like who wants the job, but but Liz, I'm gonna maybe back that one up. Is like there are people that want the job.
He wanted the job.
He wanted it. He didn't want
think
that
he
job.
knew that was going to come up, but he wanted the job.
But the reasons they want the job, I think, really gravitate around power.
Yeah,
and having that entitlement and authority. I don't know. Yeah. Those are the people that want the job.
And of course, with that job, if you get recalled and voted out,
Yeah, so the people we like to see in those positions, those are the things they care least about.
Right.
Yet those are the people we want in those positions, serving our interests.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
and I think the job of being married to Halle Berry, but as soon as I get that first bill from the Gucci store, I'd be like, oh, I didn't know this was coming.
Right. But I think speaking of the governors, it really shines a light on who the true leaders are and which ones are willing to stick their necks out for the people versus just being there for the spotlight.
Yeah.
And I'm very apolitical, but I was very impressed with Governor Cuomo in New York, and everything that he did seemed like he was motivated to help the people of New York, not motivated by the spotlight that he was under. And that to me shows great leadership, and it's not about getting the poll numbers in his favor. It's about serving the people of his state.
Fair enough. Yeah. Again, a job that is thankless.
Right.
And if someone puts it on you that you're grandstanding, then to them you're grandstanding. And if you are dying to protect people and no one responds, and it's like it's such a hard position to be in, like it's just. Yeah, it's hard. Anyhow, thanks to all the folks who do government hard shit that's impossible and thankless. And when I get mad at you, understand that I appreciate that it's hard. That's what I'm going to say about that. We like you guys. John, what's up with you?
I was just going to follow up your statement by saying it's not saying that we appreciate what your dumbass decision was, but just that you were willing to go out for the job. The other thing is, that thirst for power is balanced by the willingness to be in that kind of scrutiny. And, those guys who thirst for that, I don't know, they're wired a little differently, I suppose. But to answer your other question, it's a daily grind, man. And we're back to work. We've got projects under construction that are behind the eight ball because when we quarantined, we had customers who had sold their existing houses and then bought new houses that we're in the process of remodeling. And so now we took, however many weeks it was, 7 weeks off. And we came back and it's like, well, we still only have 6 weeks to finish this house because I got to relinquish my old one and move into the new one. So, it was like everybody wants to get back to work and we're glad to be back to work, but holy cow, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Then what happens if there's a second or a third wave that knocks out, the legs out? It's so many unknowns, it's crazy.
And everybody who is doing work in every place that I've been, everybody is first of all, just trying to figure it out. And then second of all, whatever they've figured out is a bunch of new protocols. So like I had to go into Home Depot to buy a spool of Romex a few days ago. I know exactly where it is. I went exactly to it. I grabbed it and I went right to the checkout stand. And still, it took me 25 minutes to perform that transaction because everybody is, doing additional things, taking the additional steps, making additional room, all of that whole business. Everybody's waiting outside to get in. So every process just takes longer. So, hopefully now that we're sort of slowly coming back to things, I hope there isn't another wave. And I also hope everybody maintains their patience for each other.
Hey, I want to ask you this, John, since you're here, and our next episode is going to be Phil, and that's going to start in a few minutes here. But on Monday, we have Libertarian presidential candidate nominee, or not nominee, he is their candidate, Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah.
You've been looking at, I think this is super cool. I mean, because, we're always talking about a third party, a third option. Well, here we go. Here is the legitimate presidential candidate about to be on the Break It Down show. Your thoughts? Well,
I will say candidly that I don't think she has a snowball's chance in hell. Because being a third party candidate means that you've eliminated 80% of the country who's going to vote for their party. So there's that. But I'm excited to see what she has to say. I think I have quite a few libertarian leanings myself. I also think that some of the platforms of that party are not for me. So I'm really curious to see what she has to say, and I'm curious to see how much she wins me over because, I'm open to hearing what she's about.
Where's your bar at in terms of President Trump versus Vice President Biden? Like in terms of I'm not asking you who you're going to vote for, but for me, those guys are both not viable candidates because of the kind of people they are and their inability to be honest.
I'd love for both parties to have a better candidate.
Okay.
And I really liked Joe Biden, and I'm really sorry that the task that he's faced with now exposed some things that, he ran out of legs. I want to say that his usefulness, he's been a great public servant and dedicated himself and raised a good family of, more public servants. But I think that, I wish his party could have allowed him to stop and ride off into the sunset before his usefulness wore out, because I don't think he's up to the task. And I want to continue to admire him, like I continued to admire John McCain all the way through the end of his life. Not that I wanted his expiration to happen, but, he lived the entirety of his life in complete usefulness, was still sharp, was still at it. And then Joe Biden, I think, I think he's done. And I'd like for him to settle off and go and enjoy a nice, quiet retirement and maybe do some fly fishing and stay active and stay, with us as long as he can. But I don't think he's up for the job.
Yeah.
And it's a sorry state of affairs when the way that the system works such that he becomes the guy.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fellas, anything you want to say before we close out?
No, I think this is an interesting episode.
Way to pivot. and adapt on the fly.
We did pivot. Dad's phone obviously fell out of the car.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we'll get it back on the show.
Yeah.
But John, good pinch hitting over there.
Hey man, it's great to see. It's great to see you. It's great to see you, Phil. Always great to see you, Pete. And I'm glad I got roped in. I have another engagement, so I'm going to miss Phil's show. But I'm glad I could pop in for a little while and see you guys' faces. And your surroundings look a little more pleasant than mine do right now.
Well, then, listen, I appreciate it. Hey, everybody, we're going to have Phil on in a few minutes. We're just going to reset and go again. So if you want to come check us out, I'll push that show out here in a few minutes. We'll probably go live in like 10 or 15. Talk to you later, John.
Right on, fellas.
All right.
See ya.